some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are.
It's the weirdest thing. He'll go and like literally hug an American flag. Now, I love the flag, but I mean, it's like weird what he does.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird what Donald Trump does. That's amazing. Democrats, they think Trump's weird. And welcome to the Chris Plant Show on a Monday. And boy, oh boy, do we have a weekend's worth of stupidity to share with you from the guys on the other side and the women on the other side of the aisle. But we're not really allowed to identify the genders, are we? It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant. It is the Chris Plant Show, after all. I don't know if you had plans for this evening. I don't know if your evening was booked up already. But 60,000 Americans, 60,000 are expected to participate in something the Harris campaign is calling White Dudes for Harris. It's all about gender and race with these people. White Dudes for Harris. 60,000. David Hogg. Remember David Hogg? He's the guy who wants to take away your Second Amendment rights. Yeah, he's found his new spot. And it's going to be the White Dudes for Harris call tonight. I'm sure a bunch of us will be tuning in and recording because there may be some epic comments made. Kamala Harris is going to be out on the campaign trail. She's going to Houston and to Georgia this week, attempting to reclaim Georgia. I don't think Texas is going to be turning blue. I know for a long time there was a group inside Texas that had plans to turn it purple, but it's still a reliably red state. Just like this weekend, Kamala Harris and some of the Democrats came out and said, hey, you know what? I think we could win Florida. And a lot of us laughed, right? We laughed very loudly. But that also could be said, you know, when we laugh at the Democrats, they say, well, do you guys really think you could win Minnesota? Minnesota has been reliably Democrat for a long time. Look, they keep electing Ilhan Omar. And Governor Walz of Minnesota is one of the guys who's pushing the weird thing. That weird statement. They keep calling Trump and Vance weird. And so they're going to claim that any hopes of turning Minnesota into a red state are just weird. I know I'm going to keep saying weird all day long. But the left is telling us this is our new watchword. Yesterday on CNN, the discussion was also about not just the closing polling data, which appears to show Kamala still having a little bit of a honeymoon bump, but the fact that the camp is now labeling Trump weird.
To one source over the last week who said, you know, we are trying to do that and we're building the plane as it flies. So I think that you're going to see more of these kind of notable statements from her calling Donald Trump weird.
They're building the plane as they're flying it. Now, that's pretty accurate, isn't it? They are building the plane as they're flying it. That sounds pretty unsafe to me. But Governor Walz, out on the stump, as I said, he's the guy who he's just calling the Republicans weird. In his own words.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are. So it isn't much else. Don't give them the power. Look, are they a threat to democracy? Yes. Are they going to take our rights away? Yes. Are they going to put people's lives in danger? Yes. Are they going to endanger the planet by not dealing with climate change? Yes. They're going to do all that. But don't lift these guys up like they're sometimes the heroes. Everybody in this room knows, I know it as a teacher, a bully has no self-confidence. A bully has no strength. They have nothing.
So Governor Walz suddenly catapulting himself into the competition for the Veep stakes with Andy Beshear, Pete Buttigieg, Roy Cooper, Mark Kelly. And now he's getting a lot of attention nationally. And he was over at the CNN as well. And he had a suit and tie on then. But I was looking at this going, wait a minute. Wait just a minute. If we're talking about weird ideas, what are the weird ideas? We should make a list, and so I did. What are the weird ideas that Donald Trump has? Well, I played you some of his campaign promises last month if you were here. He made some pretty powerful campaign promises when he was at a rally in St. Cloud, Minnesota over the weekend. And, you know, they include things like securing the border and getting rid of inflation, which getting rid of inflation is going to be a really tough call for whomever is in the White House because the Democrats have saddled us with so much debt that it's just going to be hard. You have to go into an extreme austerity program. But here's my partial list of Donald Trump's weird ideas. And if you have a weird idea, and I'm talking about ironically weird, you're welcome to share it at 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625. Donald Trump's weird ideas. No men competing in women's sports. Wow, that's weird. Don't allow men to compete in women's sports. Lower taxes. You know who else came up with that idea of lower taxes? John F. Kennedy wanted lower taxes so you'd have more money and more of your money in your pocket where you can decide what to do with it. That's a strange idea. Election integrity. What a horrible idea that is. Yeah, what if we had election day on election day? Not 6 weeks, 8 weeks, however many weeks the Democrats want of early voting and mail-in ballots, a ballot harvesting, and sending ballots and voter registration paperwork to anybody who signs up for a government program, whether they're a citizen or not. Election integrity, what a really weird idea. A strong military. Donald Trump wants a strong military. The Democrats are saying, no, wait a minute. For every dollar we spend on the military, we got to be spending dollars on social programs. Never mind we're trying to keep America safe and secure. You have to put money into the pockets of the people in terms of giveaways first. No gender mutilation in children. Look, if you're over 18 and you want to get rid of your twig and berries, that's up to you. You can do whatever you want. That's one of the great things about this great country and the freedoms. But kids, let's leave the kids alone. Let's take the drugs that are stopping puberty out of the hands of doctors who've given them to children. So no gender mutilation on kids. What a really weird idea. Meritocracy. A society that's built on you succeed because you did well. Kind of like that whole capitalism thing. If you're selling products, then you should succeed. It's profitability. Not what Kamala Harris and her cohorts are looking for, and that is to tell people, well, you know, if we can make sure everyone has this, and that means we have to take it away from some people and give it to others. You know, because not everybody starts at the same spot in life. Pretty much they do if you're paying attention in America. Some families have more to give to their kids, but guess what? They probably worked hard to earn it. Yeah, meritocracy, really weird idea. Really weird idea. Oh, no more wars. You know, Donald Trump's the guy who said, we're not going to be starting wars. We're going to be ending wars. Not so much with the Democrats. And we do know that when Donald Trump was in office, Ukraine was not attacked. And why is it that we see pretty much nonstop reports of the military activity between Israel and Gaza, between Israel and the Houthis, between Israel and now Hezbollah, but we don't really ever get any reports, any visuals about the activities in the war between Russia and Ukraine? We're spending billions and billions of your dollars to fight that war for the sake of freedom, but we're not seeing the reports. I saw tons of reports this weekend after Hezbollah killed a dozen children playing soccer in Israel. Yeah, that happened. Donald Trump was speechifying in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and before he actually got into the meat of his speech, he talked about that attack.
Today's attack on Israel cannot be forgotten, and it will go down as another moment in history created by a weak and ineffective United States president and vice president. They wouldn't have done this if I were the president. They wouldn't have done it.
That's right.
And they didn't.
He's absolutely right. Donald Trump in St. Cloud, Minnesota, reminding everybody there, reminding everybody listening that he was not seeing this kind of action. Putin was not invading Ukraine. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, all directed by Iran, were not going into Israel. And yet now we see that's just going on without anybody seeming to be able to do anything about it. Very interesting. So I'm making a list of other weird ideas that Donald Trump has, and you are always welcome to share your ideas on the weird ideas that Donald Trump has. A quick review, seeing what we've covered already. It's, of course, no men and women's sports, lower taxes, election integrity, meritocracy, strong military, no wars, no gender mutilation on the kids. And I'm sure you have some to share at 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625. Let's go to Bart on line 3 in Fairfax, Virginia. Hello, Bart. Welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning. Great to be on the call with you. I wanted to just point out a little bugaboo that I have. It's frustrating, and you sort of went into it a little bit. Whenever you talk about debt, the conservative media, which gets sucked into this all the time, taking on the language of the left, you also have to mention assets, the debt-supported assets. And there are so many very valuable assets that the federal government owns that I think Donald Trump has insight into, which I think is very appealing. If those assets were privatized, sold off, think about how much money that would bring in, just wireless spectrum alone. And then that could be used to retire the debt. And, oh, by the way, then those assets are privately owned, which means they're taxed. So you get a multiplier effect on supporting or paying down the debt from the added debt service that those privatized assets can do. Conservative media must make a more cogent argument than just buying into the left's language about how debt pay down and debt control equals austerity. It doesn't. Federal government assets can be privatized, and it would be an enormous boost. To the country.
You bring up a really interesting point. It's one that should be investigated in depth and quickly because it is an important idea, and it's a way to raise, as you've said, a bunch of tax revenues as well without taxing any of the individuals or businesses out there right now, only on their prosperity.
Exactly.
It's a great idea. Great idea, Bart. And, Donald Trump is a businessman, and he is somebody who will undoubtedly look into this. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. That's a really cool idea. It's kind of one of those things that's the opposite of what the Democrats are doing, especially when they go in and decide, we're going to federalize this land. And in their eyes, they are going to protect that land, and they won't allow any drilling. I always go back to ANWR, the Alaskan National Wildlife Reserve, which if you look at a football field, if you look at a 100-yard football field with end zones on each end, ANWR is the size of a postage stamp in the corner of the end zone. That's how big the Alaskan Wildlife National Reserve is, that is loaded with all kinds of energy possibilities. And the Democrats have stopped us from harvesting that energy out of ANWR. Again, a postage stamp in the corner of an end zone. They say, we're just going to ruin the environment. But that wealth of natural resources could bring untold dollars to our nation and do great work for everybody. everybody, I got to take a break. I know I'm running into the wall. We'll get back to the phones more on this discussion of the weird ideas that Donald Trump has. Lower taxes. Ooh, what a strange man. And then we'll talk about some of the weird people working for the Biden administration, Biden-Harris administration. Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.
You're listening to The Chris Plant Show.
It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. If you want to see the stories that catch my attention every weekday, you can go to pureopelka.com, pureopelka.com, or just follow me on Twitter X or Facebook or Instagram. We get to everything. So many of you have always called in when we're on because we have a conversation. I know I rant for a while, then I go to the phones. Kind of like Chris. And speaking of Chris, let's go to Chris on line 1 in Marshall, Virginia. Hello, Chris. Welcome.
Good morning, Myko. How are you doing?
I'm good, sir. Thank you for that enthusiastic welcome.
That right on, man. I got 2 quick points for you. Kamala Harris, the cackleocracy, she's a lot easier to understand when you consider something. If any of your listeners' children ever sat down at the dining room table and started cackling and giggling like her, how quickly would you hand them a sample cup and point at the bathroom? She's stoned, Mike. The other point I wanted to make is, because of all of these protected classes that have come up in the last couple of decades, I wonder how long it's going to be before liberalism is considered a protected class above reproach or challenge.
We're pretty close to that right now, Chris. We're pretty close to that.
I think they love it. Yeah.
In fact,
it's perfectly for the victim status, man.
Well, we were told last week by a Democratic representative in the House of Representatives that if you use the phrase DEI or reference that Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, that's on par with the N-word. So they're already going after language immediately to prevent any kind of realistic, honest discussion back and forth about what the problem is with DEI. You know, we need to make like a DEI hard movie. That's what it's called, DEI hard. And maybe we'll use the former head of Secret Service. Thank you. Boy, this audience is smart. It's Mike Opelka. I'm in for Chris Plant as he's on vacation. It is the Chris Plant Show.
This is the Chris Plant Show.
It is the Chris Plant Show on a Monday. Welcome to it. Chris is on vacation. Mike Opelka, my name, in for my friend Chris Plant as he is sailing with a bunch of you, too, apparently. This Lister cruise, very well attended, looking like a lot of fun. I have a little envy. Okay, a lot envy. Okay, a truckload of envy. But we're having fun here because we get to cover everything that's going on in the world as we are 98 and a half days away from an election. And it's going to be the most important, I do believe it is the most important election in our lifetimes. And I'm talking about all kinds of things because the Democrats and all of their buddies in the mainstream media have latched on to this idea that Donald Trump is weird. Donald Trump is weird. I don't know. Why is he weird? Because he starts businesses. Sometimes they succeed amazingly and he generates incredible wealth and he gives his kids opportunities. Boy, is that weird. That's really weird. And he loves his country. He hugged a flag on stage and they thought that was weird. He walked out on stage at CPAC a couple of years ago and he hugged the flag and the crowd went nuts. These people don't understand symbolic gestures. The only gestures they understand involve half of a peace symbol, and a middle finger flying. That seems to be the only gesture they have. So we're looking for your thoughts on what other weird things Donald Trump does. I think him being a capitalist, him getting his kids involved. They always say if you want to understand who a person is, look at their children. Look at the kids they've raised. Look at the Trump kids. They're pretty darn good, and we're just getting to know Barron. But I bet you he's going to turn out pretty darn good as well. Even Tiffany Trump has started to shine a little bit. She was hidden away for a while. You know, that was the daughter Donald Trump had with Marla Maples. And she's now starting to show up on a regular basis. But Don Jr. and Eric and Ivanka, and as I said, Barron's certainly sounding like he's going to be a fine young man, and I think his mom has a lot to do with that. Oh, that's another thing Donald Trump wants to try and do, is make sure both parents are involved in the raising of the kids. Yes, Donald Trump was married more than once, more than twice, but he liked to make sure that mom and dad were involved in the raising of those children. That's a weird idea, isn't it? Why would you want parents involved in raising kids when you could have the government doing it? Yeah, boy, that Trump, he is so weird. He really is weird. Governor Walz was on with Jake Tapper. I mentioned that Walz was the guy that over the weekend launched the weird label on Donald Trump, and CNN saw it getting traction, so they said, we better get him in here, and let's have him explain what all this means. Where did the weird thing come from? So the governor actually took off the T-shirt and baseball hat that he had on while he was making the speech in public and slapping the weird label on Trump, and went to CNN and had a sit down with Jake Tapper.
I think that you're the one that set this tone, and there's this shift. The Harris campaign seems to be following your lead, echoing this language. Why do you think weird is a more effective attack line against Trump than what Democrats have been done previously, which is argue that he's an existential threat to democracy?
Before Walz answers,
it's an observation.
Hold on, Governor Walz, hold on. Before he answers, I think this is actually taking a page out of the Trump book. I really do believe this. I just realized that the Democrats have been walking around forever saying he's an existential threat to this. He's an existential threat to democracy. Just like they were always saying, climate change is an existential threat to the planet. Nobody talks like that. Talk like people speak commonly. They will understand you. I actually think saying Donald Trump is weird is how the Democrats are explaining what they mean when they say he's an existential threat to democracy, which he's not. Again, the Democrats are the one who just canceled 14 million votes. 14 million. But here's what Walz had to say.
Being a school teacher, I see a lot of things, but my point on this is people kept talking about, look, Donald Trump is going to put women's lives at risk. That's 100% true. Donald Trump is potentially going to end constitutional liberties that we have, end voting. I do believe all those things are a real possibility. But
now, he never explains why, and one of the things that I notice is the mainstream media never goes in for the second question. How is he going to do that? What indication do you have that he's going to do that? Donald Trump is all in for securing our elections. Donald Trump is all in for making sure that people who shouldn't be voting aren't voting. They never ask the follow-up question. They just allow the talking point to get out. But that's why they're allies to the left.
Him way too much power. Listen to the guy. He's talking about Hannibal Lecter and shocking sharks and just whatever crazy thing pops into his mind. And
of course, Governor Walz, who is now on the short list of white guys to become Kamala Harris's running mate, is referencing these other talking points. Hannibal Lecter, electrocuting sharks. That was a weird and funny story that Donald Trump told on the campaign trail about electric cars. And if you win an electric car and it had fallen into the water in shark-infested waters, would you rather get burned up in the electric car because the salt water could likely ignite the lithium battery And, oh, yeah, the lithium batteries are a problem. Ask anybody who was stuck on the highway between Los Angeles and Las Vegas this weekend. There's that one highway that everybody drives about 1,000 miles an hour on, and it's usually a 4-hour ride from Vegas to L.A. It became an 8 or 12-hour ride this weekend because a truckload of lithium batteries overturned and caught fire. It was a little ADD sidebar for me. But so Trump was telling this story about the shark-infested waters. The electric car goes in, the battery catches fire. Do you burn up in the car or do you get eaten by sharks? And would the electric car electrocute the sharks? It was just a little experiment, and it was a little bit of fun. But the left thinks, oh, that's weird. Now, that's how people talk to each other. They tell stories like that, but there's more.
We just give him way too much credit. And I think one of the things is when you just ratchet down some of the, the scariness or whatever and just name it what it is. I got to tell you, Jake, my observation on this is, have you ever seen the guy laugh?
Yeah, I see him laugh all the time. And mostly at you people. I've seen Donald Trump laugh. This is weird. That Governor Walz is now speculating that Donald Trump has not laughed in the last 6 years. I think we need a Trump laughing tape. And the other part of this is Donald Trump laughs when it's appropriate, as opposed to cackling when it's not. That is more from Walz and his no laughing Trump theory.
That seems very weird to me that an adult can go through 6.5 years of being in the public eye. If he has laughed, it's at someone, not with someone. That is weird behavior.
Well, maybe he's laughing at you for this idiotic take. Weird behavior. They're going to keep pushing this. Maybe we need a new shirt in the Chris Plant merchandise store that says, I'm voting for the weird guy. Well, maybe I'll make that. A little more from Walz.
I don't think you call it anything else. It is simply what we're observing.
Yeah, it's not. It's not weird. Donald Trump laughs all the time. He laughed at Joe Biden during the debate when Biden said he was a 6 handicap, and then and the golf course, and then instantly went back and said, I got it down to an 8 handicap. These people don't understand what they're saying, they themselves. But they're going to try and paint Donald Trump now as weird. And J.D. Vance is weird. And we got to talk about the J.D. Vance story in the New York Times this weekend because it was really an interesting tale. 90-plus emails and text messages, some from as far back as 2007, 2010, that suddenly showed up. And have some interesting things to say. And the person that J.D. Vance was talking to was a transgender individual. We'll talk about that. Speaking of weird, there is a great city in the state of Texas. The capital of Texas is Austin, Texas. And I believe the unofficial city motto, maybe it's the official city motto, we'll ask our caller, is keep Austin weird. Ronnie is on the phone from Austin, Texas. Ronnie, welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Yeah, I believe that actually the city council made that the official motto. I'm pretty sure of that.
Now, I loved Austin. I spent a lot of time in your town back in the late 70s, early 80s, and I loved Austin for its music, for its food, for its atmosphere. It was a great town, but it seems like it's become a liberal stronghold in the middle of the very conservative state of Texas. Is it as bad as we're told?
Well, they haven't run out of other people's money yet. So right now it's doing okay right now.
Okay.
But they will become San Francisco. A little bit longer. But the reason I called in, it occurred to me that Biden, he's already declared he won't run for office again, but he could resign, for example, in the month of October, and that would make Kamala Cackler the 47th president of the United States.
That's true. And it would certainly screw up a lot of Trump merchandise, which if you look at it, it says make 45, 47. And that would be a big blow to the merchandise. But that is the reality. It would be kind of unfair because Kamala would only be president for a very brief time. And so maybe she should be 46.5 or something. Like when you get an upgrade on your software, it's not, Windows 11, it's a Windows 11.2 or whatever. It's always got a little decimal point. But you're right. If Joe Biden were to step aside for health reasons, for whatever reasons, it certainly would change the merchandise around this campaign, if nothing else.
At a debate, the cackler could say, I am the president and Trump is a felon. Just keep saying that over and over again. And it might brainwash the American people.
Ronnie, there is a debate about that, calling Donald Trump a convicted felon, because he's technically, legally not a convicted felon until he's sentenced.
Correct.
Now, the sentencing hearing has been put aside, so she may or may not be able to say that. And I've noticed
I think
the networks have stopped saying that because I think they're worried about libel suits.
Well, I know, what's his name? Step on All of Us, the guy at ABC News. What's his name? Step on All of Us.
I didn't know. That's a good new nickname. I haven't heard that one, but George Step on All of Us. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I made that up. But, I think he is getting sued for that.
Well, that's very likely, because the reality is you can't call someone a convicted felon because they are not officially until they are sentenced. And now Trump's sentencing has been put on hold, and this whole thing might go away. We'll see, Ronnie. I hope Georgie Steps on All of Us will have to pay a serious fine to the Trump campaign or to whomever is suing. Thank you, Ronnie. Enjoy 6th Street. Used to be one of my favorite places to hang out in the great state of Texas, and we appreciate you. Let's grab one more before we move on here. Rick is in Manassas, Virginia. Hello, Rick. Welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, good morning, Michael. Nice to hear you again.
Thank you, sir.
My observation with the call screener was this. Very bright people like Chris Plant, yourself, and certainly President Trump can speak extemporaneously without having to be glued to a teleprompter like the cackler in Want to Be Chief Harris. That woman, she is going to crater during the debate. So I can tell you this. When you read and you do as much research and knowledge as much as Chris has, and I love the guy, by the way, and I know he's on a cruise, you don't need a teleprompter to tell you what to say. And there are some bright Democrats, one or two in the past 100 years, but not very many. I don't think Roosevelt had a teleprompter. He just talked into the radio with a script. That's pretty much it. I'd like to hear your comments on that.
Well, you're right. You wouldn't have to take your mittens off to count the number of Democrats who can speak the way Donald Trump could speak. And Trump does use a teleprompter, but as we saw with the campaign speech, it was 93 minutes long, 31 minutes of it were scripted. The rest of it was Donald Trump. And that is a very unusual situation. There are only a handful of folks who can do that. Since she has been elevated and anointed to be the presumptive nominee of the party, Kamala Harris has given zero, count them, zero live interviews. She has only done these addresses where they have been scripted. They have had teleprompters. They have been set up in front of very friendly audiences. The teachers' unions in Wisconsin, the teachers' unions in Texas, and we will see more and more of this going forward. But until and unless we get a debate, which she's now out there saying Donald Trump has backed out of the debate. Not true. Kamala Harris had not filed paperwork to be the nominee until Friday of last week. So there is no nominee. And until the Democrats actually give her that title, Donald Trump doesn't have to commit to anything.
So, Michael,
yes,
no one with half a brain is going to let Kamala Harris do anything unscripted. That is going to be the most controlled candidate you have ever seen on the planet.
Well, yeah,
And at
that's
least-
true.
at least-
That's
at
true,
least
Rick.
she's
But
quasi-
she has discipline. She has script discipline. That's the one thing she does have. So we, as the opponents, have to force as many extemporaneous opportunities as possible. I'm up against the clock, Rick. I appreciate you being there. Thanks for all the kind words and your support for this program. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.
There's only one Chris Plant. The Chris Plant Show.
It is the Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for my friend Chris Plant. Oh, my goodness. I can't believe we're almost out of this hour. Yesterday, a plane going from Houston, Texas to Boston, Massachusetts had to make a landing. I believe they actually diverted to Dulles eventually. And the audio from the cockpit was kind of mondo bizarro. Listen to what was going on.
To the doctor, and I talked to the crew, and it sounds like it's quite bad back there. It's still really bad. The crew is vomiting, and passengers all around are asking for masks, etc. And it sounds like I think 20-minute flight to Cleveland is probably the better option instead of going an hour and 40 to straight ahead to Boston. Especially with it kind of being a biohazard. I think we need to probably get this plane on the ground ASAP.
I think it ended up in Dulles. And here in D.C., this United, it did get diverted to Dulles yesterday afternoon. I wonder if any of those people are in the D.C. listening area. Golly, Bob, howdy. A biohazard situation in the passenger compartment. I'm glad my wife isn't listening. I can't get her on a plane to go anywhere, and this would seal the deal. I don't know what was going on. Apparently, everybody in the back got sick. It sounds like the movie Airplane, doesn't it? Yeah, it does, although without the comedy. Everybody seems to be okay, though. If it were a biohazard thing, we would have heard. All right. Third hour of the show just around the corner. Mike Opelka in for my friend Chris Plant right here on The Chris Plant Show.